I always thought my twin sister Elena and I shared everything, including our secrets. That was until I found the folder on her old laptop, and my whole world imploded. My name is Andrea, and up until last week, I thought I had the perfect life. A successful career in marketing, a handsome husband named Ken who doted on me, and a close-knit family that most people would envy. Sure, Elena and I had our differences, but that's normal for sisters, right? Especially when one of them has been struggling with infertility for years. Please, Andrea, you're my only hope. Elena pleaded over coffee at our weekly sister date. Her hands trembled as she clutched her mug. The doctors say I can't carry to term, and surrogacy agencies are so expensive. I stirred my latte, watching the foam swirl. Elena, that's a huge ask. You're my twin. Who else could I trust with this? Her eyes welled up with tears. Ken says you'd be perfect for it too. I nearly choked on my drink. You discussed this with Ken before talking to me? She waved dismissively. He's family too, and he's so supportive of the idea. Of course he was. My husband had always been closer to Elena than most brothers-in-law. Sometimes I wondered if he spent more time texting her than me. I'll think about it, I said finally, more to stop her pleading than anything else. That evening, while cleaning out our spare room, the one Elena insisted would make a perfect nursery, I found her old laptop. She'd left it here months ago, claiming it was too slow to use anymore. I powered it up, thinking I might find some old photos we could use for Mom's upcoming birthday slideshow. Instead, I found the folder labeled Baby Plan. My fingers hovered over the trackpad. I shouldn't snoop, but something about the way Elena had brought up surrogacy today felt off. The way Ken had been acting strange lately, taking private calls and working late. I clicked. The first email made my blood run cold. From Ken to Elena. Subject: Re-inheritance timeline. The lawyer confirmed. Once Andrea's pregnant, the trust fund kicks in. We just need to make sure she agrees to the surrogacy before she finds out about the inheritance. If she knows about the money first, she might get suspicious. My hands shook as I scrolled through months of correspondence between my husband and sister. Plans, schemes, ways to manipulate me into carrying Elena's baby. Not out of love, but because our grandmother's will had a bizarre clause about continuing the family line. The door downstairs clicked open. Andrea, I'm home. I slammed the laptop shut, my heart pounding. Ken's footsteps echoed up the stairs. There you are. He appeared in the doorway, smiling that smile I used to trust. How was coffee with Elena? I forced myself to smile back, though my insides were screaming. Fine, the usual. He sat beside me on the floor, picking up a photo album. You know, I've been thinking about what Elena asked. About the surrogacy? Have you? My voice sounded strange, even to my own ears. I think we should do it. Help family, you know? He squeezed my hand. Plus, it would be good practice for when we have our own. I wanted to scream, to throw the laptop at him, to call Elena and demand answers. Instead, I nodded slowly, buying time. Maybe you're right. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. Have you thought more about what we discussed? Time is really of the essence here. I looked at Ken, still flipping through photos and pointing out memories we'd shared. Memories that now felt tainted. Then at my phone, where Elena's message glowed accusingly. They wanted to use my body, my life, for money. My own sister and husband had been plotting behind my back for months. Fine. They wanted to play games. I could play too. I typed back. Actually, I've been thinking, maybe we should discuss this more. Come over for dinner tomorrow? Ken beamed when I showed him the message. That's my girl. Always thinking of family first. I smiled back, but inside I was already plotting. They thought they had me figured out. Thought they could manipulate me into being their perfect little surrogate. But they'd forgotten one crucial thing. Twins don't just share DNA. We share cunning. And I'd learned from the best how to keep secrets. Sleep didn't come easy that night. Every time I rolled over, I found Ken's sleeping face next to me, the face of a man I thought I knew. The same face that had been scheming with my sister behind my back. At 3 a.m., I crept back to the spare room and opened Elena's laptop again. This time, I dug deeper. We need to make sure she doesn't find out about Grandma Rose's trust fund until after she's pregnant, Elena had written. The lawyers said it has to be a direct descendant, and since I can't carry... Another email from Ken made me physically ill. Don't worry, I can convince her. She trusts me completely. Once she's pregnant, we'll have access to the full inheritance. Split 3 ways, that's more than enough to start fresh. Start fresh? My hands trembled as I forwarded the emails to my personal account and deleted the evidence from the sent folder. The next morning, Ken acted like nothing was wrong. Want me to pick up wine for dinner with Elena tonight? He asked, adjusting his tie in the mirror. Already handled it, I replied, pushing scrambled eggs around my plate. Got her favorite red. He kissed my forehead. You're the best, babe. This means so much to her. To us. Us. The word felt like poison. At work, I could barely focus. My friend Lorelai noticed immediately when she stopped by my desk. You look like you've seen a ghost, she said, perching on my desk. Spill. I shook my head. Not here. We met in the parking garage during lunch. Sitting in her car, I showed her the emails on my phone. Those manipulative bastards. Lorelai's face flushed with anger. You're going to confront them, right? Not yet. I leaned back, closing my eyes. I need to know everything first. How much money we're talking about, what else they've planned. Girl, you're scaring me with how calm you are. Trust me, I'm screaming inside. My phone buzzed. Elena, can't wait for dinner. Ken says you're warming up to the idea. We have so much to discuss. Lorelai read the message over my shoulder and snorted. The audacity. I need a favor, I said. Can you help me set up a hidden camera in my dining room? Just in case. That evening, Elena arrived right on time, wearing her favorite blue dress, the one that made us look most identical. Ken greeted her with a hug that lasted a few seconds too long. I brought the surrogacy agreement, Elena chirped, pulling papers from her bag. Just to look over, of course. No pressure. I poured the wine, my hands steady despite my racing heart. How thoughtful. But maybe we should eat first? Throughout dinner, I watched them exchange glances when they thought I wasn't looking. Every laugh, every casual touch, every seemingly innocent comment now carried hidden weight. Andrea. Elena set down her fork. I know this is a huge decision, but think about how amazing it would be, carrying your niece or nephew. We could experience everything together. Plus, Ken added, reaching for my hand, it would be good practice for us, right, honey? I withdrew my hand to reach for my wine. Tell me more about the agreement. Any specific terms I should know about? Elena brightened. Oh, it's all very standard. Just basic medical requirements, lifestyle restrictions during pregnancy, that sort of thing. And compensation? I asked innocently. Ken coughed. Well, we'd cover all medical expenses, of course. That's so generous. I smiled, thinking of the emails about the trust fund. You know what? Let me see those papers. Elena practically threw them at me. As I pretended to read, my phone buzzed with a text from Lorelai. Camera working perfectly. Getting everything. This is quite detailed, I said, flipping pages. Mind if I have my lawyer look it over? Their faces fell in perfect synchronization. Oh, I don't think that's necessary, Elena stammered. It's family, after all. Family, I echoed, taking another sip of wine. Speaking of which, I was thinking about Grandma Rose the other day. Remember how particular she was about her will? Ken's fork clattered against his plate. Elena's face went white. Such specific conditions, I continued. She always did have strong opinions about carrying on the family line. More wine? Ken jumped up, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. I watched them squirm, feeling a cold satisfaction. They had no idea I knew. No idea that every word, every nervous glance was being recorded. Let them think they were winning. Let them think I was falling for their plan. Because the best revenge, like the best lies, takes patience. And I was just getting started. The next morning, I drove to Aunt Elisa's house on the outskirts of town. If anyone could help me navigate this mess without raising suspicions, it would be her. She'd always been the family's voice of reason, and more importantly, she'd been the executor of Grandma Rose's will. I found her tending to her roses, her silver hair gleaming in the morning sun. "Andrea." She pulled off her gardening gloves. "What brings you here so early? Everything okay?" "Just needed some aunt wisdom," I said, following her inside. Her kitchen smelled like fresh coffee and cinnamon rolls. Some things never changed. "Is this about Elena's surrogacy request?" Aunt Elisa asked, pouring 2 cups of coffee. "She called me last week, practically bouncing off the walls about it." I gripped my mug tightly. "Did she mention anything else? About Grandma Rose's inheritance, maybe?" Aunt Elisa's hand paused mid-reach for the sugar. "No. Why? Just curious about the will. Elena mentioned something about family lineage requirements." She sat down slowly, studying my face. "The trust fund doesn't get released until there's a new generation. Your grandmother was very specific about that." She paused. "But Elena knows she doesn't have to rush this. The money will be there whenever." "When was the last time you actually read the will?" I interrupted. "About 6 months ago, when Elena started asking questions." Aunt Elisa's eyes narrowed. "Andrea, what's really going on?" I pulled out my phone and played the recording from last night's dinner. With each word, Aunt Elisa's expression darkened. "Those sneaky little—" She cut herself off. "Have you confronted them?" "Not yet. I need to understand exactly what I'm dealing with first." She stood abruptly. "Wait here." She returned with a thick folder. "The complete will and trust documents. I should have shown you this months ago, but Elena insisted she'd handle it." As we pored over the papers, my suspicions were confirmed. The trust fund would only be released once a new generation was born. But nowhere did it specify which sister had to be the mother. "They're trying to rush you into this before you discover you have equal claim to the inheritance," Aunt Elisa said, her voice tight with anger. "Oh, that girl. Your grandmother would be heartbroken." My phone buzzed. Another text from Ken. "Have you looked over those papers yet? Elena's really hoping we can start the process soon." "I need a lawyer," I said. "Someone discreet. I know just the person." Aunt Elisa reached for her phone. "Davis Ray. He's handled family matters for years. I'll call him now." While she made the call, I scrolled through more messages. Elena had sent photos of baby clothes. Ken had texted about scheduling a doctor's appointment. Each message felt like another twist of the knife. Davis arrived within the hour, his briefcase tucked under his arm. He listened without comment as I explained the situation, occasionally making notes. "Well," he said finally, "you have options. The most important thing is documenting everything. Keep those emails. Record conversations when legal. And whatever you do, don't sign anything." "What about the trust fund?" I asked. "Based on these documents, you have equal right to it. They're trying to manipulate you into giving up your claim." He shuffled through his papers. "But there's something else that concerns me. These medical forms they want you to sign? They're not standard surrogacy agreements. They're trying to trap you into specific terms that would give them complete control over your medical decisions during pregnancy." My stomach churned. They really thought this through. "Sociopaths usually do," Aunt Elisa muttered. My phone buzzed again. "Elena. Lunch tomorrow? We should talk about the timeline. Ken found a great fertility specialist." I showed the message to Davis. "What's my next move?" "Keep playing along," he advised. "But we'll need to move quickly. I'll draft proper documentation to protect your interests." "I'll help," Aunt Elisa added. "Elena won't suspect anything if I start asking questions about the trust. She thinks I'm just being my usual nosy self." I hugged them both before leaving. In my car, I found another text from Ken. "Missing you. Can't wait to start our family journey together." I typed back, "Me too. Everything's going to change soon." That was the only honest thing I'd said to him all day. Driving home, I thought about Elena's face at dinner, so earnest and loving on the surface, about Ken's gentle touches and encouraging smiles. They'd perfected their performance, but so had I. The difference was I had truth on my side, and soon they'd learn exactly how expensive their lies would cost them. Lunch with Elena felt like starring in a twisted play. We sat at our usual cafe, but everything had changed. Every smile felt poisoned, every word calculated. I found the perfect nursery theme. Elena gushed, showing me pictures on her phone. Gender neutral, of course, since we won't know for a while. It's beautiful, I said, noting how she'd already started saying, we. You've really thought of everything. Speaking of which, she reached into her designer bag. I have the medical screening forms. The fertility clinic can see us next week. I took the papers, pretending to study them. Us? Well, you and Ken, technically. I'll be there for moral support. She stirred her iced tea. He's taking time off work specially. Of course he was. I slipped the forms into my purse right next to my phone, which was recording everything. You seem distant lately, Elena said, reaching for my hand. Are you having doubts? I squeezed her hand, remembering all the times we'd comforted each other as kids. Just processing everything. It's a big decision. But we're sisters, she said, her eyes welling up right on cue. We share everything. More than you know, I thought. That evening, Ken brought home takeout from my favorite restaurant. As we ate, I noticed him checking his phone constantly. Everything okay? I asked. Just work stuff. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Hey, about those medical forms. Already filled them out. I lied smoothly. Elena's right. We shouldn't waste time. His relief was palpable. That's great, honey. I knew you'd come around. Later, while he showered, I heard his phone buzz. The message preview showed Elena's name. She's filling out the forms. Dad's lawyer called about the trust fund. We need to move fast. I snapped a quick photo of the message with my own phone before it disappeared. The next day, Elena invited us both over for dinner. Her apartment was filled with baby magazines and nursery swatches. She'd even set up a corner with a rocking chair. I thought we could start planning the gender reveal party, she announced over pasta. Something intimate, just family. Isn't that a bit premature? I asked. I haven't even started the medical procedures yet. Ken cleared his throat. Actually, I scheduled your first appointment for Monday. I froze, fork halfway to my mouth. Without asking me? I knew you'd be busy with work, he said quickly. Wanted to help out. That's so thoughtful. Elena beamed at him. See how perfect this is, Andrea? We're all working together. I excused myself to use the bathroom, pressing record on my phone before leaving it hidden behind a plant. When I returned, they were speaking in hushed tones. Running out of time, Elena was saying. Dad's lawyer is asking questions. They stopped abruptly when I appeared. Ken pulled out his phone. Look at these baby announcement ideas I found. That night, I lay awake listening to the recording. Elena. She's getting suspicious. Did you see her face when you mentioned the appointment? Ken. Just stick to the plan. Once she's pregnant, it won't matter. Elena. The trust fund expires if we don't have a baby by next year. We need her to sign those papers now. Ken. Trust me, I know how to handle my wife. I slipped out of bed and called Lorelai. I need somewhere to stay, I whispered. Not yet, but soon. My guest room is yours, she replied without hesitation. What's the timeline? They scheduled medical procedures for Monday, without asking me. Those controlling bastards. She paused. What did Davis say? To keep playing along until we have everything documented. But Lorelai, I don't know how much longer I can pretend. Just a little longer, she assured me. Let them think they're winning. The next morning, Ken was extra attentive, making breakfast and coffee. Excited about Monday? He asked, sliding a plate of pancakes toward me. I forced a smile. Can't wait. That's my girl. He kissed my cheek. Elena's right. You're going to be an amazing surrogate. I watched him leave for work, then called Aunt Elisa. The lawyer's meeting us at 3, she said. Bring everything you've got. I touched my phone, heavy with recordings and screenshots. Oh, I've got plenty. They thought they had me cornered, but they'd forgotten something crucial. The most dangerous opponent is the one who knows all your secrets. And I knew every single one of theirs. Davis's office felt like a war room as we spread out the evidence across his mahogany desk. Emails, recordings, photos, and legal documents created a paper trail of betrayal. This is more than just a trust fund issue, Davis said, reviewing the medical forms. These documents would essentially give them control over your medical decisions for a year after birth. It's predatory. They're trying to trap me, I said, pointing to specific clauses. Look at these penalties if I breach contract. Aunt Elisa picked up another document. The trust fund deadline explains their rush. But Andrea, there's something else you should see. She pulled out an old envelope. I found this in Grandma Rose's personal effects. It's a letter she wrote to you and Elena to be opened when the trust fund activated. My hands shook as I read. My dearest granddaughters, this trust isn't about money, it's about family. Support each other, love each other. Don't let greed poison what matters most. Well, Elena certainly missed that message, Aunt Elisa said dryly. Davis cleared his throat. We have enough to file for divorce and contest any claim they make on the trust fund, but timing is crucial. A knock interrupted us. His secretary poked her head in. Mr. Ray, Elena is here for her appointment. My heart stopped. What? Don't worry, Davis said quickly. I had a feeling she might try to seek legal counsel. My colleague is meeting with her, in a different building. She has no idea you're here. She's probably trying to fast-track the surrogacy agreement. Aunt Elisa mused. My phone buzzed. Ken. Don't forget, doctor's appointment Monday. Elena's so excited. We need to move faster, I said. They've already scheduled medical procedures. Davis nodded. I can have the divorce papers ready by Friday. But Andrea, once we file, everything changes. Are you prepared? I've already packed a go bag at Lorelei's, I said. But first, I need to confront Ken. Are you sure that's wise? Aunt Elisa asked. I need to see his face when he realizes I know everything. That evening, I found Ken in his home office, typing rapidly on his phone. We need to talk, I said from the doorway. He jumped, quickly putting his phone face down. Hey, honey, just finishing some work emails. Really? Not texting Elena about the trust fund? The color drained from his face. What? I pulled out my phone and played one of the recordings. Him and Elena discussing their plans. Where did you get that? He demanded, standing up. Does it matter? I know everything, Ken. The inheritance scheme, the manipulated medical forms, all of it. He ran his hands through his hair. Andrea, let me explain. Explain what? How you and my sister plan to use my body for money? It's not like that. He stepped toward me. We were going to share everything. The money, the baby. The baby? I laughed bitterly. You mean the one you plan to force me to carry by hiding my own inheritance rights? We did it for the family, he protested. Elena needs this. Elena needs therapy, and you need a lawyer. His expression hardened. You're bluffing. I pulled out the trust fund documents. Am I? Grandma Rose left this for both her granddaughters, not just Elena. You don't understand what you're doing, he warned. Elena's already started the legal process. With Davis Ray's office? Funny thing about that. Understanding dawned on his face. You've been playing us. Learned from the best, didn't I? He grabbed my arm. You can't do this to us. To Elena. I yanked away. Don't touch me, ever again. Andrea, please. His voice cracked. We can work this out. I love you. Save it for the divorce proceedings. I turned to leave, but his words stopped me. You'll regret this. Elena won't let you... Let me? I faced him one last time. That's your problem, Ken. You and Elena thought you could control me, but you forgot something important. What's that? I smiled coldly. I'm a twin too, and I learned all Elena's tricks growing up. I left him standing there, phone buzzing with what I assumed were frantic messages from my sister. Let them panic. Let them scheme. Monday's doctor appointment was going to have a very different outcome than they planned, because while they were plotting my future, I was planning their downfall. And unlike them, I had truth, justice, and Grandma Rose's real wishes on my side. The weekend before the medical appointment felt like the calm before a storm. Ken barely came home, claiming he was working late. My phone exploded with messages from Elena, each more desperate than the last. Please answer my calls. We need to talk about Monday. Everything's falling apart. I stayed at Lorelei's, watching the chaos unfold from a safe distance. Your sister's outside my house. Ken texted Sunday night. She's hysterical. What did you say to her? I didn't respond. Instead, I focused on tomorrow's plan with Davis and Aunt Elisa. Monday morning arrived with a bang. Literally. Elena showed up at Lorelei's at 7 a.m., pounding on the door. Andrea, I know you're in there, she shouted. You can't do this to me. To us. Lorelei opened her bedroom window. Leave now, or I'm calling the police. She's my sister, Elena screamed back. This is family business. Family business? I finally emerged onto the porch. Like plotting to use me as an incubator? Elena's mascara was smeared, her hair disheveled. It wasn't like that. We were going to tell you everything. When? After I was pregnant and trapped by your fake medical contracts? The contracts were for protection. Your protection, I cut in. Not mine. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. Please, Andrea. You're my only hope for a baby. The trust fund expires. The trust fund? I laughed bitterly. That's all you really care about, isn't it? No, I mean, yes, we need the money, but... We? I raised an eyebrow. You and Ken seem awfully cozy planning my future together. Her face flushed. That's not fair. He was just helping... Helping himself to my inheritance, you mean? A car pulled up. Ken jumping out before it fully stopped. Elena, I told you to wait. Perfect timing, I said. We can all go to the doctor's appointment together. They exchanged panicked looks. About that, Ken started. Maybe we should postpone. Oh no, I smiled. Everyone's already there waiting. What do you mean, everyone? Elena demanded. You'll see. The fertility clinic's waiting room was packed when we arrived. Aunt Elisa sat with Davis and his legal team. 2 police officers stood near the reception desk, and in the corner, our father's lawyer clutched the original trust fund documents. What is this? Elena whispered. This, I announced loudly, is the gender reveal party you wanted. Except we're revealing something else today. Davis stepped forward, handing out copies of a thick document. This details the conspiracy to defraud Andrea of her inheritance rights through coerced surrogacy. Ken grabbed for the papers. You can't prove... Actually, Aunt Elisa interrupted. We can. Those medical forms you tried to trick her into signing? Illegal. The hidden trust fund details? Fraud. The recorded conversations about your scheme? Damning. Elena collapsed into a chair. Daddy's lawyer wasn't supposed to be here until next week. Plans change, I said. Just like your baby plans are about to change. The police officers moved closer as Ken started toward me. You're making a huge mistake. The only mistake, I said clearly, was thinking you could manipulate me into giving up my rights, my body, and my future for your greed. Davis cleared his throat. Officers, we'd like to file formal complaints of conspiracy and attempted fraud. Elena burst into tears. Andrea, please, we're sisters. We're sisters, I corrected. Until you decided money was worth more than that. Ken tried one last time. Think about what you're doing to our marriage. I held up my left hand, now ringless. What marriage? The divorce papers were filed Friday. The room erupted in chaos. Elena wailed. Ken argued with the officers. Lawyers exchanged documents. But I stood calm in the center of the storm, watching years of lies unravel. My phone buzzed. A message from Lorelei. "You okay?" I looked at Elena, sobbing in her designer dress, and Ken, gesturing angrily at Davis. "Better than okay," I typed back. "I'm free." Because that's what this was really about. Not money or babies or even revenge. It was about reclaiming my life from people who thought they could write my story for me. And as I watched them face the consequences of their actions, I realized something important. Sometimes the happiest endings come not from getting what you want, but from escaping what you never needed. The aftermath at the fertility clinic spilled into the parking lot, where Elena finally dropped her victim act. "You've ruined everything," she screamed, mascara streaming down her face. "I was supposed to have a baby. The money was supposed to be mine." "Ours," Ken corrected, earning a venomous glare from Elena. "Shut up. This is your fault too. If you'd just convinced her like you promised." I stepped between them. "Convinced me? More like coerced me." "Oh, please." Elena's laugh was hysterical. "You always had it so easy. Perfect career, perfect husband. The husband you were plotting with behind my back?" Ken grabbed my arm. "Andrea, baby, let's talk about this privately." "Remove your hand," Davis warned, "or the officers will do it for you." The police officers moved closer as Ken backed away. "The trust fund deadline is in 3 months. Elena sobbed. "What am I supposed to do now?" "Get a job," I suggested. "Try earning something honestly for once." She lunged at me, but Aunt Elisa stepped between us. "That's enough. Elena, you're acting exactly like your mother did when she tried to contest Rose's will." The parking lot went silent. "What?" Elena and I asked simultaneously. Aunt Elisa's eyes widened. "You didn't know? Your mother tried to claim the entire inheritance for herself, cutting you both out. That's why Rose added the baby clause, to ensure the money would go to the next generation, not your mother's greed." "Mom tried to steal our inheritance?" Elena whispered. "Like mother, like daughter," I said coldly. Ken cleared his throat. "The inheritance doesn't matter. Elena and you what?" I turned to face them both. "Go ahead. Tell everyone what you really had planned." They exchanged panicked looks. "Show them the emails, Andrea," Aunt Elisa urged. I pulled out my phone and read aloud. "Once she's pregnant, we can move forward with our plans. She'll be too focused on the baby to notice." "Stop," Ken pleaded. "Notice what?" Davis pressed. Elena cracked first. "We were going to move away. Start fresh with the money and the baby." "Together?" I asked quietly. Their silence was answer enough. "Well," Davis said, "that certainly adds another layer to our case." The police officers stepped forward. "We have enough to proceed with charges." "Charges?" Elena's face went white. "You can't be serious." "Conspiracy to commit fraud," one officer listed. "Attempted coercion, potential medical abuse." Ken started backing away. "This is ridiculous. Elena, tell them." But Elena was already crumbling. "It was his idea. He said we could have everything, the money, the baby, a new life." "You lying bitch." Ken lunged toward her. The officers moved swiftly, restraining him as Elena collapsed into hysterics. "I want my lawyer," Ken shouted. "Present." Davis smiled coldly. "Though I represent your soon-to-be ex-wife." Aunt Elisa put her arm around me as we watched them both being led to separate police cars. "The trust fund?" I asked Davis. "Will be split equally between you and Elena as originally intended," he confirmed, "though her portion might be affected by legal fees and penalties." Through the police car window, I watched Elena sob into her hands while Ken stared straight ahead, jaw clenched. They really thought they'd get away with it, I marveled. "People driven by greed usually do," Aunt Elisa said. "Your grandmother would be proud of you, standing up for yourself." My phone buzzed. A message from Lorelei. News crews are heading your way. Want to make a statement? I looked at the chaos around me. Police cars, crying sister, angry soon-to-be ex, lawyers exchanging cards. Actually, I said, I do. As reporters gathered, I stepped forward with Davis beside me. My name is Andrea, I began, and this is a story about family betrayal, attempted medical fraud, and the importance of knowing your rights. Elena screamed from the police car. Ken demanded his phone call. But I kept talking, sharing every detail of their scheme, because sunlight is the best disinfectant, and some family secrets deserve to see the light of day. The truth, I concluded to the cameras, is that no amount of money is worth sacrificing your dignity, your autonomy, or your right to choose what happens to your own body. As the reporters clamored with questions, I turned away. Let Elena and Ken face the public consequences of their private schemes. I had my own future to plan. And for the first time in months, I could breathe freely, knowing it would be my choice, my life, my story to write. Without their manipulation, without their lies, without them. The morning of the court hearing, Lorelai helped me choose a simple black dress. Ready to end this? More than ready. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. My story had sparked a national conversation about reproductive rights and family coercion. Elena and Ken's mugshots had gone viral. Inside, Elena sat with her lawyer, wearing prison orange that clashed with her pale skin. Ken was kept separate, having turned state's evidence against her in exchange for a lighter sentence. All rise, the bailiff called. As the judge entered, I felt Aunt Elisa squeeze my hand. The proceedings moved quickly. Both Elena and Ken had accepted plea deals. Before I delivered the sentences, the judge said, "Would the victim like to make a statement?" I stood, my prepared speech forgotten as I faced my twin sister. Elena, I began, we shared everything growing up. Same face, same room, same dreams. But somewhere along the way, you decided that sharing wasn't enough. You wanted to take. She wouldn't meet my eyes. You and Ken didn't just try to steal my inheritance or my body. You tried to steal my choice, my future, my trust in family. Ken shifted uncomfortably in his seat. But here's what you actually gave me instead. Strength I didn't know I had. A voice I might never have found. And a new purpose. I turned to the judge. Your Honor, I've used my portion of the trust fund to start the Family First Foundation, helping victims of reproductive coercion and family fraud. Elena's actions showed me how many people need this support. Elena finally looked up, tears streaming down her face. Andrea, Save it. I cut her off. Your tears don't work anymore. The judge nodded appreciatively. Mr. Hernandez, you'll serve 18 months for conspiracy to commit fraud, followed by 5 years probation. Ms. Hopkins, given the premeditated nature of your crimes and the breach of family trust, you'll serve 3 years, with restitution payments to be determined. Elena crumpled. Ken stared at the floor. Outside, reporters swarmed us again. How does it feel to see justice served? What's next for the foundation? Any words for your sister? I faced the cameras. To anyone being pressured by family, being manipulated into giving up their rights, speak up. Get help. You're not alone. Back at Lorelai's house, where I'd been staying, Aunt Elisa poured champagne. A toast, she said, to new beginnings. My phone buzzed, a message from Davis. Trust fund transfer complete. The foundation is officially funded. Another text followed from an unknown number. Saw you on the news. Same thing happened to me. How can I help with the foundation? Then another. Thank you for speaking out. And another. You gave me courage to say no to my family. Lorelai read over my shoulder. Look what you've started. We're going to need a bigger office, Aunt Elisa mused. The doorbell rang. Delivery from my favorite restaurant. The card read, "To the strongest woman I know. Love, Dad." He'd been quietly supportive throughout the ordeal, devastated by Elena's actions, but proud of my response. As we ate, more messages poured in. Women sharing stories, offers to volunteer, requests for help. You know, Lorelei said, Elena thought she was taking everything from you. Instead, Aunt Elisa added, she gave you a gift. Purpose. I picked up Grandma Rose's letter, which I'd kept close these past months. Don't let greed poison what matters most. She was right, I said. What matters most isn't money or babies or even family ties. It's being true to yourself. My phone lit up again. Elena's lawyer. She's asking to see you. Not yet, I typed back. Maybe not ever. Because some bridges aren't meant to be rebuilt. Some betrayals cut too deep. Some endings are really endings, but they can also be beginnings. I opened my laptop, where the Foundation's website waited for launch. Our mission statement glowed on the screen. Empowering individuals to protect their rights, their bodies, and their futures from family coercion. Ready? Lorelei asked, finger hovering over the publish button. I thought about Elena in her cell, Ken facing his consequences, and all the people out there facing similar battles alone. Ready, I said firmly. The website went live as my phone continued buzzing with messages from people needing help, offering support, sharing stories. This wasn't the family I was born into, but maybe it was the family I was meant to build. One truth at a time. One voice at a time. One story at a time. Starting with mine.